Now, a big part of this channel has always been me both trying to understand that which is implicit beneath the surface and to maybe make it more explicit and visible so that we understand it. Now, a good amount of this occurred to me while I was watching this video from Chris Williamson about how men compete for status with Rob Henderson. I followed Rob Henderson on Twitter for quite a while. He had a terrific conversation with Jordan Peterson. If I recall, that was an earlier conversation, and did Peterson interrupt him too much? It could very well be. But he had a wonderful conversation with Chris Williamson, and I want to play some of that for you.
There was one study, they showed a series of women videos of men, and then at the end they asked these women, how sexually attractive is this man? Then they showed a group of men the same videos of these same guys and asked them, how likely is it that this man would win a physical fight with another man? Then the researchers tracked those men in those videos and had them return 18 months later and asked them a bunch of questions, including how many sexual partners have you had over the last 18 months? The correlation between how sexually attractive the women found these men and how many partners they had was zero, but there was a strong and significant correlation between how intimidating or formidable men rated them and how many sexual partners they recounted over the last 18 months. And so essentially how tough a guy looks to men is a stronger predictor of his sexual success than how attractive he looks to women.
Now, that's a very interesting teaser for the conversation. It was a very interesting conversation. What it shows, now, there's a lot, I've been thinking a lot about this evolutionary psychology approach to, that is so popular right now in sort of the YouTube red-pilled mythosphere. But part of what's interesting about these dynamics that they're finding is that these aren't just simply individual. Evolutionary psychology sort of began with the imaginary that we're kind of individuals all by ourselves. And I've made the point recently, as Jordan Peterson has been making quite regularly on his conversations, that sanity isn't something that's sort of in our head between our ears, but it's something that's between us and among us. It's very much community based. Now, what a number of these observations show is that there's a whole lot of things that are sort of kept in the cloud, as it were, between us. So they asked women, okay, which of these men are more sexually attractive? But actually, women, as Jordan Peterson has said many times, sort of peel off the top of the status hierarchy, and it's the men, to a certain degree, who are deciding who all the women are going to pay attention to. Now let's pick up this conversation a little bit later.
Funny. What does it mean to say that masculine traits amongst men and secondary sex characteristics seem to be more about formidability than attraction? They are antlers rather than peacock's tails, because it seems like men judging other men's formidability is more accurate at estimating the number of sexual partners that a man has, so how successful he is with women, than his attractiveness is. Given the fact that women say they're not attracted to it, and yet the men that have these things are the ones that are the most successful, does that not just mean that women don't know what they're attracted to? Revealed versus stated preference.
And again, what do we know, and at what level do we know? Now, they might not be cognizant of it. They might not be meta-conscious of it, but it is obviously impacting behavior. And we see this all the time. There's all these layers beneath us that are impacting our behavior that we're unaware of, and sometimes we become conscious of it. Gosh, we need more words in that space, because we need more words in that space.
Preferences?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, I'm inclined to say that I think they would acknowledge that those things are like more attractive than the average, or maybe not having those things, but they would state, this other kind of preference of like, yeah, I want a guy who's muscular but not too muscular, or something like that. But yeah, there is this. I mean, for human behavior in general, right? There's often this mismatch between what people say and what people do, and yeah, stated versus revealed preference. And I think there's something like that going on here too, where for men, what is like the, more so than for women, a strong predictor of your sexual success, your romantic success, is your status, right? And status is this sort of amorphous, you can't you can't look at status under a microscope or something, right? It's something that exists in the minds of other people, and people have to agree that you have it, right? Like, you don't get to decide if you have it; other people do. And in this instance, throughout evolutionary history, it seems that men have been the ones to confer status on other men more so than women. And I know that Jordan Peterson's made this point too about like how, there are sort of these dominance or competence hierarchies, and women sort of use those. They sort of use this as a sort of cognitively outsourced, this burdensome task of picking an attractive partner.
They just filter
sort
the
of let
guys off the top of
the
hierarchy.
Exactly. And they don't oftentimes women don't even know or care what the contest is, right? I make this point in that article about how, like, a lot of women don't even they don't like sports, or they don't watch sports, but they still find athletes attractive, right?
Dude,
They're like, I don't know what you're doing out in that field, but I love athletes.
How fucking good? How good would it be to create, right? And you have this huge pool of men, 100 men over time, and it's like a round robin type scenario, and then it's knockout stages all the way to the top, and then get the women to rate the attractiveness of the men over time, and maybe run that a bunch of different times, and run different women through, and see if the guys that won a competition which was completely based in luck are the ones that are given more attractiveness. And if you can have someone, you could have to control it somehow where you had attractiveness before and attractiveness after. How much does winning a completely arbitrary game improve your attractiveness to women?
It's a good question. I think that, so if you were to carry out that experiment, you would need to have...
He talked about a coin flip. It just didn't want to waste the time of him setting it up.
You need to introduce an additional element, which would be other men respecting the winner. I think that's a key component here. It's like, it's not just winning the contest; it's winning a contest that matters to men in particular, right? Like if you win the coin tossing contest or whatever, and you have a bunch of other guys being like, "Oh, that was incredible, man! That was all, high fives."
Yeah, you need to observe them being competitive, pedestalizing the person that won.
Yeah. I think that is the that would actually be the key here for women, sort of the variability of their attractiveness ratings would shift somewhat based on that. And I think basically there's just interesting papers on this about how, so the sports competition is one where maybe women aren't particularly interested in sports, but yet they find athletes attractive. Historically, a lot of women, even educated women, were illiterate, and yet they still found well-known authors to be attractive. They find painters and artists attractive. Even if they may not necessarily understand what's going on with the art, but they see that the respect and prestige that the artist accrues from the art community, or from the sort of the class of people that they're around, those kinds of things. And so, I mean, you can see this with, to me, one of the more amusing examples of this is guys who play video games on YouTube get groupies. You're just this guy playing games and uploading a live stream and commenting on it, and they have 1 million subscribers or whatever. And
even if their girlfriends hate them playing video games as much as they do.
And I've seen news coverage and media articles about yeah, he's a 19-year-old kid who plays video games all day, and he's getting love letters and girls messaging him on Instagram and all this stuff. And it's if he was just a dude sitting at home playing video games, he wouldn't get a single love letter, right? But the fact that he has 1 million other nerds out there saying oh, I love you, man, you're
We've pre-selected this as the king of our group. Well, yeah, it's so funny because
the king of the gamers.
Yeah, the same accusation that's thrown at men as them retreating from society and not being a viable mate for women, video games in the basement, spending too much time on screens. If you just tune that up to high performance, and everybody else says, yeah, I know that he's doing the thing that people say is the antithesis of being attractive to women, but he's the best at it. You go, oh, yeah. Well, now he's super attractive.
Yeah. There's I think
This is fascinating. But look at the deep level at which these things are functioning. And again, it's not happening. What matters to the women is what's in the collective consciousness of the men. Notice what that says about us.